For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard, we will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30-odd minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Greetings, Earthlings. It is great to be with you. We are in the state of Ohio. You can tell behind me. How cool is that? Have you been before? Welcome to the Buckeye State, everyone. Good to be with you. Jump in our chat room at 30oddminutes.com because Andrew and Sarah are in the control room. Take a look. You guys doing well?
Here. Yeah, haha.
Doing fine.
No complaints,
Doing fine.
man.
Is there a party in the chat room already?
There's always a party in the chat room.
Very good.
Yeah, there is.
We ask you guys to tweet us, email us, Facebook us, and you do all of that, and we appreciate it. We got a few emails this week. Sarah, please.
Yes, we did.
Yes, yeah, we got one
What do
that
we got?
says, hey, Jeff, am I right in thinking that you and Sarah are siblings? Still enjoying everything you turn out, my man, Lee.
Yeah, Lee. So what, do we fight that well? Like exceptionally well?
It's kind of
like
weird.
We've been doing it our whole lives?
That's kind of a weird question. Actually, Lee, to answer your question, my sister is actually Michelle Bélanger, the psychic vampire.
That's right.
That's right.
She's
We
also
already covered that.
my wife, depending on which internet post you read. Kidding, she's neither. She's not related. Sarah and I are not related, but that's cute.
Yeah, it's very cute. Yes, it made us chuckle.
Absolutely. Yeah. We got other emails too, though, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Let's go with this one. So, hi, Oddballs. I discovered your show about 6 months ago and love it.
Yay.
I've watched all your past shows too, with ghosts being my favorite topic. My question, are there any theories out there which say that apparitions and EVPs could possibly be caused by rifts in time or glimpses back into time? K in Fargo. What do you think, Mr. Andrew?
I think so. I think it's a possibility. I think a lot of things that are referred to as residual haunts could be, as they say, the stone tape theory, something being played back, or quite possibly some kind of punch in the fabric of space and time, and we're watching something that happened 20, 30, 100 years ago. Could be.
Or it's happening simultaneously right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard all sorts of things like that
It'll
before.
make your head spin thinking about it.
I love that stuff. I mean, space, time, all of that. I mean, we're in a spaceship, for God's sakes. We traverse the universe. We go back in time, forward in time, and land in all kinds of neat places. So why not? Distinct possibility. I do love the stone tape theory. That might be worth its own show sometime. So tonight we are talking about ghosts, and of course that leads to ghost hunting, paranormal investigation. And when you think about ghost hunting, you got to think about equipment. And we threw it down to our own Dr. Dreck down in his brand new lab and asked him about a specific piece of ghost hunting equipment.
Greetings, Oddballs. Dr. Dreck here, and I'm in my nice new space lab that Jeff has finally given me. Pretty good, huh? I even got a key to the men's room now. Of course, it's an anti-gravity men's room, which makes things interesting, but you don't want to hear about that. What I want to talk about today is that nice little gadget that ghost hunters have. It's called a K2 meter, and it's something that, when ghosts are near, the little lights go off. They blink a lot, and, they're supposed to be able to communicate with spirits. But that's kind of expensive, so naturally I can't afford it. But I discovered something even better than a K2 meter. And a lot of people have them in your own home and you don't even realize it. My little ghost hunter is right here on the floor next to me, and his name is Mr. Bosco. Say hello, Mr. Bosco. I call him my K9 meter. You see, Mr. Bosco is so sensitive to ghosts, he just starts barking his fool head off whenever a ghost is around. And oh, Mr. Bosco, here's something right here. Oh, look at that. Look at that. It's the ghost of Lassie. What's that, Lassie? Look out for that boulder. Oh, jeez, thanks, Lassie. Oh, that was a close one. I'm glad the ghost of Lassie was here. I guess, unfortunately, my K9 meter only can detect ghost dogs. But, hey, that's better than nothing, right? You're still a good little ghost hunter, Mr. Bosco. Oh, yes, you are. You're a good little ghost hunter, yes.
We got to change the keys to the executive washroom.
And look
Easy
out,
locks.
and do something about those loose rocks in the ceiling of his lab too.
I know. This spaceship is weird, man.
He always
Thank you,
sneaks
Dr.
back
Dreck.
in, man. Yay, Dreck.
All right, very good. All right, cool stuff. So we are talking about ghosts, and also want to remind you, if you're following us on Twitter at 30-odd minutes, we can show your tweets during the show. Look, tweet. Sometimes they pop up. Tonight's question is, what's your favorite Ohio haunt and why? And we've already had some answers. Look, here's one. Yeah, anyway, tweet us. We love it. Okay, so behind me tonight, we've set the mothership down in the heart of Ohio, right here. We've landed right on the front lawn of the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, and they say the place is haunted. I've heard that. Our guest is going to take us on a haunted tour of the Buckeye State. We'll talk about Mansfield, as well as several other Ohio haunts, and we'll see and hear some chilling evidence of ghosts. Our guest is the author of numerous books on the paranormal and other subjects. His books include Ghost Hunters, and his latest, Ghosthunting Ohio, On the Road Again. He's the editor of the Haunted Road Trip series from Clearacy Press, and he's been a guest on countless radio and television programs around the United States. Beaming live to the mothership from Cincinnati, Ohio, please welcome John Kachuba. Hey! Greetings, Earthling. How are you?
Well, greetings to you. How are you, Jeff?
I'm great. Thank you so much for beaming up to an actual spaceship, hovering over your state of Ohio. Tell us, why is Ohio so haunted?
You know, that's an interesting question. I don't know how many books about Ohio that have been out there. And I would just say that it's because of the population. We have a lot of people here. You know, it's a very populated state. And we're all kind of strange, a little unusual. So we're prime ghost material, I think.
That's true. I didn't want to say anything about the strange part, but I'm glad you brought it up, because it's awkward when I say it. So thank you. We've hung out in Ohio before. We were at the Cincinnati Music Hall together, another haunt, a couple of years ago. And it is a great place. And we talked about Mansfield. I was excited to talk about this place because I've only had about 5 ghost experiences in 15 years of doing this. Mansfield was one of those places. Can you recall your first visit there?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about it actually in this book that we were talking about.
Right.
Mansfield is incredibly haunted. Almost anybody that goes there has some experience. A typical thing is EVPs, the electronic voice phenomena.
Sure.
When I went there, I was lucky enough to go with a large group of people, including, you just mentioned Michelle Belanger a little bit before. She happened to be there, as was Jackie Williams, a psychic. And I can recall going down one of the cell blocks and Jackie literally picking off inmates one by one, saying, okay, there's a guy here with a rolled-up T-shirt and a pack of cigarettes under his arm, and he's mad. And going down the line and saying, there's a fat guy here, and he's angry about something. But it was incredible. It's just incredible. It seemed to be, full of spirits there.
Right.
And
right.
EVP is what we got primarily.
So, there's the picture behind us. Now, there's one spot. This was my own experience there. We were there for an overnight investigation. There were 5 of us right where this photo was taken. It's the second Ohio State Reformatory picture. Right where this photo was taken, it's the administrative side of the building on the first floor. All of us were looking right up that stairway, right where I'm pointing the camera, and we saw someone walk by that landing. 5 of us. Now, all of us reacted the same way. We thought, okay, wait a minute. Maybe someone else is in the building. Maybe they're on the other side of that stairway, casting a shadow down. I run up there. I walk through the whole thing, and the only way to cast a shadow where all 5 of us saw it was to walk right on that landing. And it's one of those things where you try to debunk it, and you run out of possibilities, and then all 5 people look at each other and go, whoa, that wasn't a shadow. That was something that didn't seem to belong there. It's an amazing place. When you walk into that prison, and for those of you who are Shawshank Redemption fans, that's where the movie was filmed. That's the set. You walk in, and I'm not psychic. I'm not sensitive. John, I know you aren't either. You've professed you're
right.
not. You walk into a place like that, and you just go, whoa. I'm not alone. Not in a place like that. Have you found you got more sensitive over the years since doing this?
I think I have. It's interesting. I once ran into a spiritualist minister, capital S, in the spiritualist church, was attending one of my lectures. And at the end, she said to me, you're a very sensitive person. And I said, yeah, about as sensitive as a brick,
Yeah.
But she said that because we were the way I was approaching ghost hunting, if you want to call it that, was sort of an open-minded, respectful attitude. she said they're going to start, attaching themselves to you or following you because of that attitude. And I think it's worked. Things have happened to me since, and it seems more and more are happening. But yeah, I don't claim to be a psychic or anything like that, but I think we all have those abilities if we can learn how to tap into them to some extent anyway.
Sure. No, absolutely. Now, earlier today, we did ask if anyone had questions for you. We got one. Sarah.
Yes, we did. So 2 people actually want to know the same question. We got Cindy Blake and Amanda Marie. They both want to know, are there any good haunted places in Toledo, Ohio?
Toledo.
Holy Toledo.
Thank you.
Actually,
Couldn't resist. He couldn't resist.
we actually do have a place. In my book, we have a place called the Oliver House.
Okay.
Which is a place that is an interesting place to check out. This began life in the 1850s as a hotel. And over the years, it was used for many different things, one of them being a hospital for Spanish-American War veterans. Mm-hmm. And now, in there's several different venues. There's some restaurants, and a little bakery, and a nightclub, and things like that, a couple of bars. And people say that they see the ghost of what they call the captain. They describe somebody being in a military uniform from about the time of the Spanish-American War. You see him in different locations throughout the building and the different venues. But the strangest thing that I got out of that was a photograph that was taken by a person who lives in some of the condominiums upstairs. There's about half a dozen condos. And this guy was coming down the private elevator for those people. He was by himself. For some reason, was carrying a camera. When he stepped off the elevator, he had this kind of creepy feeling that something was not right. And he turned around and took a picture of this empty elevator compartment just before the doors closed. And when he did, I think you have this picture,
Yep.
but what he got was an amazing photo.
That's creepy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's really creepy.
Yeah.
You know, this screen doesn't actually do it enough justice. It's disturbing. Did he feel the presence? Was it anything more than this photo? What happened after?
Well, that's the thing is he felt something coming down. He was by himself, but he felt very uncomfortable, and he just felt like there was something there, and so he took this picture. The original, by the way, is under the bar at the Maumee Bay Brewing Company, which is one of the venues there.
Right.
So if you go there, ask the bartender to see the original photo, and they'll show it to you.
Yeah.
But he took the picture. He didn't see anything. Obviously, it was an empty compartment. When he ran that through his computer, that's what he got. And, if you look at it, you're right, it's a little bit grainy there. But it does look like it might have been a patient, maybe wearing like a white hospital gown or something.
Right.
So it could have been one of these, poor vets from the Spanish-American War.
Amazing. Now, let's jump over to the town of Newberry. Tell us about Punderson Manor. We have a picture of that.
Punderson Manor, it's an interesting place. There's an old mansion there, built in the 20s. It's now part of the Ohio State Park Service. This is the lodge now. It's been renovated. There's been a lot of activity up there. One of the longtime security guards or rangers there, a guy named Nick Fishback, talks about when this place was being renovated and was totally closed to the public, the alarm went off one night, and he and his partner went out to check something there. They went around the whole building inside, couldn't find anything. It was about 85 degrees outside. When they went inside this building, it was very hot, no air conditioning. All of a sudden, as they started to go upstairs, the temperature dropped. And it dropped, Nick said, instantly. And he said it became as cold enough to hang meat, like in a freezer.
Yeah.
What happened was, the same time that dropped, they heard a woman scream. This blood-curdling scream. So they ran up the stairs thinking there was somebody in there. Of course, there was nobody in there. They checked all the rooms. The place was empty. The scream stopped almost within a few seconds. Temperature went back to its normal temperature again. And all this happened in about 5 seconds. The place was totally closed to the public. But also, there's a photo from Punderson Manor,
right?
Taking in the front lobby. And this one, it too, is a little bit hard to see. But off to the right there, there's a figure that people say looks like the back of a man, perhaps wearing like a sport coat, a suit coat.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe heading up those stairs. Other people say it looks like a woman maybe wearing a dress. But in any case, pretty much everybody says they see a human being there heading through this lobby going up the stairs. Those are the stairs that Nick and his partner went up when they heard that scream.
Yeah.
And there was nobody in this lobby when the picture was taken. It just happened to, show up when they ran it through the computer.
Yeah.
So a lot of work to be done at Punderson.
It's amazing. There's no shortage. The more you look for this stuff, the more you find. And
right.
some places even make the news with their ghost sightings, and the stories continue, the legends grow. And speaking of news, John, we have to take a quick news break. We'll be right back with you in just a moment. Andrew Lake with the news.
Okay. In January of 2012, a professor with the Space Research Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences released his findings on 126 minutes of film that was shot back in 1982 by the landing probe Venus 13. The Russian researcher claims that there are 3 different objects which can be seen in the probe's panoramic video, moving about the surface of Venus in a manner which suggests to him they have qualities of living beings. Besides a shape-shifting disk and a black patch, the most interesting form was filmed for about 26 minutes and appears to resemble a scorpion. Let's hope they can't build spaceships. Back to you, Jeff. There's no one like you.
Thank you, Andrew. You certainly rocked that like a hurricane. Send us your news clips. We're going to be running a news segment each week. The weird, the wonderful, the paranormal. It's happening all around us. Mr. Kachuba, getting back. Let's talk about one of my favorite places in Ohio. Actually, a renowned location. It's a place I looked into for a book years ago. Talk about Thomas Edison's birthplace. This is one of America's treasures. Thomas.
Yeah,
Edison.
Exactly. This is up in Milan, Ohio, and Edison was born in this house. He only lived there for about maybe 4 or 5 years before the family moved up to Michigan. But I just happened to stumble upon it because I was giving a talk at the library in Milan. And I just said, I'll go see this historic site. And in talking to some of the guides there, they tell me it's haunted. And so I checked into it and got haunted stories from a few different people. They don't believe it's Edison, though, because he was only a child when he left.
Right.
But one of his cousins was left as a caretaker in that house for many, many years, and she lived there. And people have seen 2 apparitions. They've seen a woman standing in the living room upstairs, which they think is the cousin. They've also seen a man standing in the kitchen, which is downstairs in the basement. And they don't know who that is. They've heard disembodied voices, people saying, get out, and sort of just like a lot of heavy breathing kind of things near your ear, that sort of stuff. So it's interesting, especially when you consider that, Edison was reported to have been working on an invention to talk with the dead.
Right.
So, who knows? Maybe he's been able to do that after all.
That's what got me interested in the story. When I was tracing the story of Edison's attempts to build a spirit communication device, it led me to that museum, and I wanted to talk to people, and they led me to a book called The Diary and Sundry Observations of Thomas Alva Edison. If you're an Edison/paranormal fan, that's the book to get. It was published in the 1940s, but there's 2 first editions of it. John, I know you're a publishing geek like I am. You know there can't be 2 first editions of a book. The difference is about 60 pages. The original first edition has 60 extra pages, all about his writings on attempts at spirit communication in the afterlife. The book came out as an embarrassment to the family, an embarrassment to General Electric, of course. He was one of the founders. And those pages were removed and the book was reissued. I have both copies at home through the miracle of eBay. Thank you. And I just got really interested. I love Edison being just this person of science saying, I don't know how something works, so I want to try to figure it out, whether that's the telegraph or whether that's motion picture or whether that's the light bulb or spirit contact. And really,
you need to go to that house because he has a lot of his early inventions actually in one of the rooms in display cases. A lot of things that he did there. So that's pretty neat.
I would love to get there. And I always thought it was Milan, so thank you for correcting us on the pronunciation. How would we know?
Well, we're not Italian in Ohio. We don't say Milan.
Okay. Okay, let's jump over to Cincinnati, where you are. The Cincinnati Observatory. Now, right. I would imagine we've got a photo of it here. Aren't we looking for spaceships here? What's going on?
This is the oldest public observatory in the United States.
Yep.
It was so old that the cornerstone was laid by John Quincy Adams. So it gives you an idea how long we've been looking at stars here in Cincinnati. I got a call from the historian at the observatory after I was on Coast to Coast one night. He heard me and he said, I want you to come down and check some things out here for us. And so I went down with a guy named Shane Watkins from a group in Cincinnati called Spiritual Hope. And the historian was very coy. He wouldn't tell us what was going on. He said, just kind of check it out and see what you think. Well, Deshane and I walked around that night just doing kind of a very casual observation. But even then, we're getting some interesting EVPs, sound like human voices. And this observatory is out in the middle. It's in the city, but it's up on a hill and sort of isolated from the rest of the community. So there's not a lot of noise up there, obviously.
Right.
But it turns out that there was a suicide in 1942 at the observatory. Dr. Elliott Smith actually climbed up one of these big ladders the astronomers used to adjust the telescope, and he put a rope around the gear work and the other end around his neck and stepped off the ladder. Killed himself. So we actually have a bona fide suicide right in that main dome building there where the telescope is. And Deshane and I did a more thorough investigation a couple weeks later up there. And we did, in fact, record EVPs that sounded like human voices and music.
Yeah.
Interesting enough. Very old-time music. So
Yeah.
I'd like to go back there. We need to do more work there.
These places with human activity and, of course, a tragedy, that's the thing we hold on to. Now, before we landed the mothership here in Mansfield, Ohio, we did swing by Cincinnati because I was very eager to pick up some of this. It's Skyline Chili, which is my passion when in Ohio. And good friend Kelly sent us a case of that, so thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. Us oddballs appreciate all the Cincinnati-style chili we can get. We don't get much here in space, so it's good to have it. Okay, now you sent us an amazing EVP that we're going to play in just a second, but set this up for us. This is a country club of all places. I mean, we
Yes.
think of hoity-toity.
Snow Hill Country Club in New Vienna. The original part of the country club was a house, a family home, farmstead built around 1848.
Right.
And there was attachments built in the 20s off that. I did an investigation there with a group called OOPS, Ohio Organization for Paranormal Studies.
Right.
OOPS. And we did an overnight investigation. Myself and two other gentlemen were downstairs in what used to be the men's locker room. Actually, still is the men's locker room. And we went into the poker room. And we sat around the poker table. Didn't play any poker, but we had our little recorders out, and we sat there for a few minutes, and we simply just said, we introduced ourselves. We said, I'm John, and the other people introduced themselves. And we just said, if you have anything to say, the recorders are here, look at the light, and we'll just be quiet. And we sat there for about 20 minutes, and we did get an interesting EVP, which I think you've got there. So,
All right, we're going to play it right now. You're actually going to hear it. It repeats 3 times. Take a listen, and then we'll talk about it. Now, I'm not going to accuse you of being overly vain, but it does pretty clearly say, John, right?
Yeah.
So did you think they were talking about you, or does this ghost need a restroom?
Well, I mean, the other 2 names that we think it's saying are Ike and I think Christopher, if I don't recall. But there's 3 other names, and the other 2 were not the names of the other men that were with me.
Right.
So, yeah, it was all about me.
Nice. It's good to be the Kachuba,
What could I say?
You walk into the haunts, I'm here. What's up? No, that's good. I mean, does that unnerve you when you hear audio evidence?
Yeah. I mean, it does. When you have things like that, I've heard, I'm sure you too, you've heard a lot of EVPs that you kind of go, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing it.
Yeah.
But, that one was pretty clear. And that wasn't enhanced or anything else. That's just the way it came off the recorder. So I thought that was pretty interesting. There was nobody else in that building,
So tell me something. I know we've both been doing this a while. When you go looking for these things, regularly,
Right.
I'm not going to say it loses its thrill, because it doesn't. It really doesn't. But you become detached, analytical about the whole thing. You're just like, oh, well, A to B, B to C, D, and so on. I'm here to do this. I'm going to be thorough. But, I mean, do you still have those moments that just shake you and bring you all the way back to that first time? I mean, is this EVP an example of that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it does become, things, you start to do things by rote after a while, and it does become more of a job in a way. But I think, definitely things like that shake me up. I had an incident in Florida where a 18-inch long wrought iron hook on top of a wood-burning stove did a 180. It flipped up and flipped over all by itself with violence. It slammed down on the hood of this range. And like you said, with your 5 people at Mansfield, there were 3 of us that stood there and happened to see it at the same time and have no explanation for it. And that's when you say, like, oh, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
This is why you do it.
Yeah, right. I know. It's a reminder, and you say, whoa, there's something to this. This isn't just stories. It's not just, legends and lore. There's really something happening.
Something to it.
Yeah, John, we do have a question for you in our chat room. Sarah, Andrew, please do tell.
We do. We have one from Dr. Peter Venkman. He wants to know if you've ever heard an EVP that actually made a connection between a family's report or a story or an occurrence, like the missing puzzle piece.
Yeah. Ever get like some missing evidence in an EVP, something that kind of ties together some kind of mystery that might be going on in a location?
Well, I think, at the Athens, well, it used to be the Athens Lunatic Asylum in Athens, Ohio, now part of Ohio University. I did an investigation there with the Ohio Exploration Society out of Columbus. We were there all night long, and we left recorders in various rooms to just record whatever. And we did get an EVP from a room that would be sort of what you would call the padded cells, you know, where they put the patients who were really in danger of hurting themselves or others. And in those days, they couldn't do anything with them, but simply lock them up. And we had a recorder in there, and we got a very good EVP that sound. It made sense for the location. I don't know if it plays for you or not, if you've got that. But
sorry, we don't have that one.
Okay.
But
well,
just whisper it for us. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that.
What they said.
No, we don't. Sorry, we don't have that one. But yes, but that's interesting. So it actually does tie in with the location and tie in missing elements. And the funny thing, of course, is that if you're dealing with police and cold cases and stuff like that, not so admissible as evidence, is it?
Right. No, of course. I mean, none of this is going to stand up in a court of law. I mean, we have to be honest about that. At the most, it's sort of, it's not even empirical evidence. It's almost anecdotal. You saw something happen,
right?
But most of the time you can't even document it because it happens when you put your equipment away, you put your cameras away, your recorders away. You're walking out the door and something jumps up. Oh man, I missed it all.
Yeah. But it's so over now doing this, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing. This subject is so popular. There's so many television shows about it. Businesses recognize, especially restaurants, inns, bars, nightclubs, they recognize a haunted reputation brings people in the door from far away.
Yes.
Is that becoming a problem for you in your research?
Well, I'm not sure that it's become a problem yet. I mean, it's hard to say. I may have been duped by somebody, but I don't think so. But I'm aware of that, Jeff. And I try to approach it cautiously because you're right. I mean, I've got businesses who on their website will say, "Oh, we are featured in John's book." The menu might say something like, "It's featured in." Well, obviously, it brings in some people, so I have to be careful. I don't just jump into these things. I try to get stories that I can verify by other people, several other people, and hopefully I have an experience of my own that I can then say, well, here's what I saw, here's what I heard,
Right.
But, might somebody con me at some point? Sure, it's possible. I hope not, but it could happen.
Right. I know for me, it's always a flag. When I find them, it's great, but when they call me and say, come check out our haunted restaurant, you can have a free dinner, and, a flag goes up, and you say, all right, I'm going to take the free dinner because I'm poor. But, after that, this investigation is going to be thorough, let me tell you. No free rides. All right, real quick, we only have about a minute left. Can you tell us about the Thurber House in Columbus?
Well, the Thurber House, James Thurber, one of America's foremost humorists. He lived in this house when he was attending Ohio State University. And he wrote a very famous short story called The Night the Ghost Got In, which actually is based on a true story, which was that he and his brother were home with his mother, and they heard footsteps downstairs, and the house was dark downstairs. There shouldn't have been anybody down there. They heard these footsteps running around the dining room table. And then his brother and he go to the top of the stairs, look down in the darkness. Next thing you know, these footsteps are pounding up the stairs at them, but they don't see anybody. So they do what any manly young guy would do. They run into their room, slam the doors and scream like little girls,
Right.
And call the cops.
We've all been there.
Right. Well, the interesting thing is today the Thurber House, it's a literary facility now. It's a literary establishment, nonprofit, and they frequently host writers who get a residency and stay there for a couple of months and get to work in that house. Well, they live there, and they're there by themselves in the evenings and everything else. And several of the writers that have been there have reported the same phenomena: hearing these footsteps up and down the stairs, hearing them running around downstairs. Some of the residents that have been there have actually seen apparitions in their quarters.
Right.
So Thurber had something, there was something there. And all his life, Thurber maintained that it was a true story. Never backed down from that.
Life imitating art, ghosts imitating life. All of it makes it to popular culture. We talk about it. We're gripped by these stories. John, we've run right up to the end of the show. Really appreciate you coming in, taking us on a tour of the Buckeye State. It's been amazing. The mothership has got to take off back into space at this point, go back to our distant planet home where we're safe for another week. Thanks so much for joining us. Folks, until next time, for Dr. Dreck, Andrew, Sarah, myself, Eric in the engine room, stay odd.
Bye.